How's everybody doing? All right. So just looking at this week, super excited about this week and the challenge it certainly creates and provides for us. We have a great opportunity this week, to really. I thought a couple weeks ago we put a step forward, versus the Jets, and then last week obviously disappointed in that performance, and we were finding answers and looking for solutions, and it's really about the solutions. Is a we solution. Us doing it together. And we had some good meetings this week, some good conversations, and obviously we're disappointed. And it's not to our standard how we played last week, and we got to do a better job there. But there's in every film when you look at it, there's also good in there, right? So you have to, focus on that and also focus on improvement. There were some good things in there. We caused a takeaway. Had some good third down stops. We did some good things, and you got to build upon that. And the guys are working diligently to get that done. We know that solutions in the room. There's not a magic pill there. We just got to make sure that we do a great job of working together, and then being together, right, and then making sure the plan is tight and effective. And again, that's all of us working together, in getting that done. So I understand that the disappointment and the players and all that, but hey, we've moved on. This is now a couple days away from the game, and excited, like I said, about the challenge here this week.
Calvin Watkins, Dallas Morning News. Any changes you make, can they be big changes or subtle to kind of find a solution?
Yeah, I think that when you're working through this, it has to be subtle. You put a percentage on it, whatever. But I think that it's got to be subtle. It's got to be in the package already, and it's got to be something that you practiced and you worked on, and you make your tweaks and adjustments from there. But again, it's got to be subtle.
Do you believe you have an identity as a defense?
I still think we're working. We're working. I do think that, up front we have an identity. I think that's good. The guys are really, coming off the ball and doing that. And we got to do a really good job of building, that throughout the whole defense. So it's important that we just keep working, keep finding solutions what works best for the guys that we have back there. And again, I've said it before, is that, we've had guys in and out, and that's a big piece of it, what you can do and can't do. So it's important that we find the best solution there.
Matt, Todd Archer with ESPN. How much is some of the solutions maybe doing things that you aren't comfortable or haven't done a lot of in the past with your defense, as far as man or bringing more pressures, things like that? Yeah,
you look at everything, right? You look at everything. When your performance has been, inconsistent or not to the standard, you certainly look at everything. You're trying to find solutions. That's the coach's job to get that done. And nothing's off the table, and it's important that we do a great job of finding the right mix and right balance, in terms of keeping the plan tight as well. So that's important to do that too.
Yeah, you mentioned keeping the plan tight. Is there a tendency when it doesn't like this, you do more and it makes it worse, or things kind of get out of whack?
Yeah, I think that's you always want to keep the plan tight, tight and effective, and that's where you want to be so the guys can execute.
Tommy Arsh, DallasCowboys.com. There's been a lot of talk recently about parity in the NFL, and when it's so week to week and things can change so quickly, how do you find consistency so that you can go on the field and produce similarly week in, week out?
Yeah, to me that's about, it comes back to fundamentals. It comes back to fundamentals, comes back to basics. That's the way, the one thing that doesn't change is playing hard, right? Using great fundamentals, great technique, and executing, and that's everybody in the room, right? So that to me is what it is. There's no, magic call and all those things. You got to do those three things. You got to make sure that you're fundamentally sound, make sure you're doing a great job playing with violence, and then executing.
And then in the pass defense with some of the big plays that came last week, was it some of the same issues you saw earlier on in terms of communication, or what was kind of the message to guys this week?
Yeah, it's just everybody being on the same page. It's not anything that's glaring. We just got to make sure that we understand that being on the same page is so important. Making sure that the calls are communicated across, and the guys do a good job of doing that. And when we do that, we've executed.
Joe Hoyt, Dallas Morning News. You talk about being on the same page. How do you go about getting your guys on the same page? Is it a simple fix?
Yeah, it's just just keep working. That's all we know how to do. Just keep grinding, right? And again, I said it before, the solutions are in the room, and just keep working. And we had a good practice yesterday. I was really excited about yesterday's practice across the board. And, we're looking for a good one today, too.
You talk about getting all 11 guys together on the same page. Is part of maybe the disappointing performance so far, maybe due to some freelancing or guys not collectively being all 11 together?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I would just say that, guys understanding, right, and guys doing a good job of, executing the call. And that to me is important. There's been some mistakes. Obviously, we've seen those. And I own that, right? That I'm the defensive coordinator, and I take accountability for that. But being on the same page is everything, right? And the understanding of the defense is everything too. So we got to make sure that we're doing that day in and day out.
Nick Harris, Fort Worth Star-Telegram. You mentioned a good practice yesterday. Who have been some of the guys on that defensive side of the ball that have really been vocal? Because I'm sure it's frustrating with those guys week after week.
Yeah, those guys have always been positive. They're positive, upbeat. They go to work, and those guys are true pros, and they've done that day in and day out. Kenny's, Sally's done wonderful. Deron Bland had a great practice yesterday. So, those guys are working their tails off. And, but as a group, it was a good day.
Where did you see the issue stem from in run defense on Sunday?
Yeah, run defense is simple, right? It's about being where you're supposed to be, right, in your gaps, right, and doing it with violence and great technique. And that's important that you do that, So, we just got to keep working that way. And, again, we got our challenge ahead of us this week.
Here, Odell, CBS Sports. Jerry Jones was out here on Tuesday talking about maybe you guys playing more man. What are your thoughts on his comment and kind of the GM or owner injecting himself in that way?
Yeah, it's to me, it's we're working to find solutions. Is that one of the solutions? We're working to it. We're working to it in terms of like playing zone, playing man, playing. We've played man in the past. We've played zone in the past. We've played match zone. So it's important that we just have a good mix there. That's right.
Brian Schottenheimer said he thinks like the changes, they can be 10, 15%. What
Yeah.
have your meetings been like with him, and do you kind of agree on how much could change in terms
Yeah,
of
he and I have been just solution oriented. Just finding solutions and meeting with him, meeting with the defense. It's important that we just find solutions. It's been positive, and we're just working to get it done.
Ed Werder, WFAA. What's been the value of having Shotty more involved with the defense?
Just offensive perspective. Offense, what he sees offensively, I think that's always important. And this is not the first time. This has been going on since, day one, when we got together in the spring. Just offensive perspective, how he sees it, his opinions on it. I think it's important that you always take that in.
And you've been with a number of different franchises and had success and done first-year installs of your defense. Have you ever been in a situation where it's performing like this 6 weeks into a season, that there are fundamental?
The numbers would not say that. Yeah, the numbers wouldn't say that. But hey, we are where we are. So we got to be where our feet are, and it's important that we do that. You can't look at the past. This is where we are right now, and we're working to take a step this week. Like I said a couple weeks ago, we took a step. Now we got to take another step. So it's important that we do that.
Coach Ali Jawadi, LS Cowboys. You've had matchups in the past with Cliff Kingsbury. What about from the past that you've taken away that you got to be, ready for as you go into this week's matchup?
Yeah, it's an explosive offense, right? It's a wide open offense. Obviously they're doing a heck of a job running the football. It's important that you have, your pieces in place. It's important that you mix your calls. You got to be able to do that. And he's done a really good job there with the young quarterback. And it's going to be a big challenge, but you got to really mix it up on him.
Todd.
Ezraku's still looking for his first sack. Here's a guy who led the nation in sacks a year ago. Do you see a guy pressing to try and get one, or how do you think he's done so far?
No, he's had some good performances. He's had pressures. Obviously, he had a huge cause fumble, that we needed to recover last week, and that was a big-time play. He keeps improving every single week. He really does, and it's going to come. It's going to come because he's really bringing it, in practice, and he's done a great job in the games, and he'll get home. That's coming. So love the way he's working, love the guy, and he's done well.
Christy Scales, Cowboys Radio 105.3 The Fan. You mentioned the Commanders' run game. Jaden Daniels has nearly 200 of those running yards, yet he missed a couple of games. In the past couple of games that he's come back, are they doing anything differently or pulling back a little bit?
Yeah, I don't see anything differently, with him. I think they're running their offense, and I think they're doing the same thing, the way it looks to me.
Joe.
Obviously, with the performances are like they've been, disappointment and potentially, frustration can be with the players too. How do you, kind of as the leader in that room, go about doing a temperature check and just seeing how everyone's doing?
Just visit with guys. Visit with the leaders. It's important that you always do that. See where they are. And I understand their frustration from last week. The week before we took a step, but I do think that we have to consistently take steps. And I understand the frustration from those guys. And and I'm frustrated too. So it's important that we move that aside, right, and then focus on the solutions, at hand. So it's important that we do that, and those guys are all in on that.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.